So, how secure is your website? Well, in this episode, what I want to do is cover some of the common cybersecurity threats out there, and of course, the sort of things that you can implement to help reduce the risk of having your site compromised. So, stick around and let's get going. So, a very common tactic is the brute force method of trying to gain access to either the back end of your website or any type of system you need to log into. And again, all they're effectively doing there is trying various different combinations of passwords in order to try and guess your credentials. Now, sometimes they're able to obtain your username and passwords perhaps from somewhere else that's had perhaps a data breach, or something's been compromised and they've managed to get hold of your credentials for something else. They'll obviously try them in other areas like your website, for instance. So something to bear in mind there. Another one is the use like a dictionary of sort of commonly used passwords as well, in an attempt just to force their way in, hence the name brute force. So something else that's very, very common, if your site isn't secure, you run the risk of malware infection. And you're probably thinking, well, what's going to happen there? Obviously, they could bring your site down. Of course, they could cause disruption to the website and to its operation. But also, if they put something on there that would redirect website visitors to another website, I mean, you run the risk of your existing customers or potential customers coming to your website, being redirected somewhere else, and then becoming victim of some sort of cybercrime there, whether it's stealing credentials or scamming. There's a real possibility there. So I mean, that's not going to be good for your website. It's certainly not going to be good for your reputation. So definitely want to make sure that you're able to monitor your site and make sure that any changes that have happened on the site, if they haven't been done by you or by your developer designer, then definitely something to look into and keep an eye on. So another very common tactic would be the phishing or scam. You've probably come across them many times before. Tons of spam and junk email, usually trying to deceive you into something. To get them on pretty much a daily basis, and of course all they're there to do is to try and trick you into either clicking a link or doing something, and then of course you run the risk of obviously viruses and malware and things like that. There was I think it was last year now, there's a very large tech YouTube channel that was the victim of an attack. And again, the owner of this channel, this company, he speaks openly about it in a podcast. But effectively, what had happened was one of his member of staff had received an email with a PDF attachment, and I think it was something along the lines. It was quite a well-written email, looked genuine. It was something along the lines of doing some sort of promotional content, some sort of sponsorship deals or something like that. So of course, the member of staff opens it. It is late in the day. The email attachment doesn't open. Something's not working. But anyway, they sort of leave it be, thinking it's just perhaps a corrupt file, as it does happen sometimes. And they left it at that. And then, of course, during the course of the night, videos were removed from the channel. Other videos were uploaded. I think some videos promoting Bitcoin or something like that. And of course, they're trying to find out what's happened. They clearly know that their channel's been compromised. So as it turns out, this email attachment, this PDF file, was infected or did contain malware, which then infected the system. And of course, on that system, like most of us do, when we load up our social media and stuff, it just loads straight in. We don't necessarily have to put in our passwords every time. And that's because of something called a session cookie. And it stores that information so that the platform knows who we are and just lets us straight in. We've already been authenticated. Now, this bit of malware was able to, I suppose, one for a better word, steal that session cookie. And then they were able to, or the attackers then, the threat actors were then able to hijack that session. So as far as the platform's concerned, it's the same user. And that was it. Obviously, they couldn't do too much to the account. They couldn't lock the owners of the account out, because to make major changes, you would have to input your username and password again. which of course they never had. All they had was this session cookie. But it was enough to do quite a bit of damage. And again, he speaks openly about it on a podcast. And obviously there were lessons to be learned there. I also think, obviously, being the size of channel that they were liaising with Google and whatnot to obviously rectify this and, of course, implement other security features. So, I mean, you could talk about it for quite some time, but something like that, very easy to happen. And of course, that's where the advice usually is when you receive emails, you receive attachments and things like that, and links, of course, is unless you know who they're from, and even then it could still be a little bit risky, unless you know they are genuine, is not to open them, not to click on links, because again, the moment you click on a link and it takes you to a site, you don't know what's on that site, you don't know what's at the other end before it's too late and you've been infected. Now, of course, you're going to have your own security system set up on your device, whether it's your PC or your phone or whatever. You're going to have all that in place, but of course, you want to try and you want that to be your last line of defense. Really, you don't want to be reliant on that. Or being fully reliant on it. So again, you want to be careful with what you're clicking on, what you're opening, because again, you never know. Okay, so what can we actually do to help prevent these sorts of things from happening in the first place? Okay, so a number of different sort of solutions we could implement into our website, for instance, to help prevent the sites from becoming compromised and having our credentials stolen. So the first one is to limit the login attempts. Now, a lot of other platforms do this automatically, and you probably would have noticed this. But again, if you're running your own website, you want to make sure that the back end of the website is protected with this as well. And of course, what it will do, like the name suggests, it will limit the amount, and you can set the limit. So perhaps after 3 failed login attempts, you want the account to be locked, and that will prevent anybody from getting into it. Of course, even yourself, but of course, you as the admin, you as the site owner, you're going to be able to recover that, usually with like perhaps an email verification, something like that. So you want to limit the number of attempts. So of course, what that's going to mean is, of course, if somebody's trying to guess the password, I mean, the chances of them guessing a password in 3 attempts is going to be fairly slim, I would have thought. And of course, that's why when you register for accounts, any sort of online accounts, they put this security policy, this password policy in place, which means it has to be a minimum of 8 characters long, and it has to contain uppercase and lowercase and numbers, and special characters. And it can't be your name, it can't be your date of birth, it can't be none of those things. And okay, for some of us, we think, it's an absolute pain, trying to think of passwords that we're going to remember because, we want to make our lives easy. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we're keeping our accounts secure. And of course, that's the reason why they do it. So if we've limited our login attempts to 3 or even 5, if you want, having a password policy, which means they have to be a little bit more complex. It's going to make it even harder for somebody to guess. And of course, there's another reason why you shouldn't use the same password for all your accounts, right? Because if one account gets compromised and they've got your credentials for that account, and you use that password for all your other accounts, well, that's the first thing they're going to try, right? So again, another reason why you don't want to use the same password. I know it makes it easier to remember your passwords, but if that's an issue, then maybe a password manager or something like that is the way forward. But yeah, definitely don't want to use the same passwords for all your accounts. So another good way to help prevent cyber attacks, of course, is implementing your 2-factor authentication, or your 2FA. Very, very common. You may have seen it used on other platforms, but if it's something you can implement on your website, then I would very much recommend that. And again, like the name suggests, it requires 2 factors to be able to log in. So you've got your credentials to start with. That's your first factor, your username and password. But then to gain access, you need another factor. And that could even be a code that's emailed to you. That's one very easy system to set up. And if you think that, if there's a threat actor trying to gain access to your website, okay, if they've somehow managed to get your credentials, what's the possibility they've also been able to break into your inbox and be able to retrieve this code, this second factor? Of course, if you use the same passwords for all of your accounts, then yes, there's every possibility they'll have access to your email as well. But if not, that's one way of doing it. The other way is to use is an authenticator app, and that's my favorite way of doing it. So again, you've got your credentials is your first factor. Your second factor is going to be a 6-digit code that's generated with an app on your smartphone. And again, Microsoft do an authenticator app. Google do one. There's various ones about there. And again, when you log in, you'll put that your username and password in, and then it'll ask for the 6-digit code. You get that off the authenticator app. The 6 digits are valid for about 30 seconds. Okay, and the only way that you can log in is for the code to be generated on that device, on that app, on that specific device. So the chances of somebody who has managed to get hold of your credentials but also have access to your smartphone at the same time is going to be extremely low, I would imagine. And of course, the chances of them guessing, 6 digits, all the combinations, is it 1 million or a billion combinations within 30 seconds is extremely low. So again, 2-factor authentication, definitely well worth implementing that into your website. So another one is having a malware scanner on your site, monitoring the back end of your website to see if anything changes, if files get uploaded to the site, anything suspicious. So if you're running a WordPress website, for instance, there's plenty of plugins out there that will do the job for you. WordFence is one that I've used quite a lot of. Includes a malware scanner, and again, it'll just monitor the site. It learns as well, it develops. Of course, with so many other users out there in the world using it as well, when they detect something, it's kind of like antivirus software. When it learns of something new and a new threat, then when you get the latest update, of course, it's going to know about that. So it's well worth having, and of course, really important to keep it updated. Again, as part of your security policies for your website, you also want to implement perhaps a firewall. Again, I mentioned WordFence. That also comes included with a firewall as well. And again, it's clever, it's intelligent, it'll learn. So certainly, if somebody's trying to access your website from a known location that's been flagged as suspicious or as being involved with, other sort of cyber security issues, it's going to know about that and it's going to block it straight away. And it's going to learn. Of course, it's learning not just from your website, but from all the other websites that use that plugin as well. So again, certainly well worth it. Again, if you're constantly being attacked or attempts are being made from a particular IP address, of course, you can block that yourself. You can add rules as well to do that. Of course, it's not going to take much for a threat actor to sort of get around that by using perhaps a VPN and then using a different IP address then to carry on attempting to attack your site. But again, still worthwhile having set up. So if the worst was to happen, you want to make sure that you've got your website backed up, so that in the event that all is lost, of course, you can take the website down, you could rebuild and then restore from your backup, which may well be the quickest option for you. You want to make sure that your backups are done regularly so that everything's updated. If your content changes regularly on the site, you want to make sure that your backups are perhaps done every night or every week. So you've got the most up-to-date version of your site. Now, usually they'll be stored perhaps locally to the website and local to WordPress, but you want to be a bit careful there, because if that gets compromised, you don't really want your backups compromised as well. So you want to make sure they're stored somewhere else. Now, if you've got a small business website, you've probably got a Google Drive already. Even if you're just using the free Google Drive, again, I think that gives you more than enough space to have your backup stored there. And at least that way, they're stored away from the website, they're stored on the cloud, can be accessed from anywhere. And again, in the event of an emergency, you can grab those, you can have your site up and running, hopefully in no time at all. And the last bit of advice would be to stay vigilant. And be careful if you're receiving communications from people you don't know with attachments and links in them. I would strongly advise against not clicking on them and not opening them, because again, you don't know where the link's going to lead you, and you don't know what that file attachment could contain. So be very, very careful. Even though you may have your security software installed, you don't want to be 100% reliant on that to protect you, because obviously there's other people out there, other threat actors out there who are looking to exploit vulnerabilities within the security software. All those different solutions that you could implement that we've been talking about. There'd be people out there trying to find vulnerabilities in them. And of course, you don't want to make their life any easier. If anything, you want to make it more difficult. And that's why you put all the different solutions in place. You don't just rely on two-factor authentication to rely on that for all of your protection. It's just sort of one element among many that you want to put in. It just makes life so much more difficult for these threat actors. And of course, you don't want to end up being what they call sort of low-hanging fruit. So where you've got no security, and as soon as that gets identified, and it is usually an automated process, it's usually an automated bot that's floating around there on the website, and the moment they identify an easy vulnerability with a website, for instance, then you become a target, and then it just gets very, very complicated from there on in. So you want to make sure that you're not an easy target, that would require a considerable amount of resources and effort to try and compromise your security. If you're a small business, it might not be well worth time and the effort of these threat actors to perhaps target your system or your site particular. But if you've got no security and it's low-hanging fruit, then it's just going to be an automated attack that's going to bring your website down, or that's going to infect your visitors. So be really careful out there certainly who you're interacting with. So there we go. There's a number of different types of cyber attack there, and a number of different solutions that we can implement just to help prevent the risk of having our sites compromised. So there we go. If I did miss anything, please feel free to drop a comment below. But until then, hopefully I will see you in the next one. So stay safe, take care, bye-bye.